Welcome to another Dr. Russ Air Rifle Adventures. Well, we've had quite a storm come through. Cold weather, 5 inches of snow. And then warm weather, almost 60 degrees, melts the snow. Now it's raining. I don't want to complain because this storm came all across America. I understand over 50 people have passed away as a result of this storm, so our hearts go out to those families. Today, we're going to finish up a very important topic, at least to me, and that is the reasons we want to point our guns down. A very important reason. I'm going to tell you just how different air guns are from powder guns and why we would want to store one with the barrels down and one with the barrels up. We'll cover that today. If you find it helpful, give us a thumbs up. Leave a comment. I love to answer them. And lastly, if you don't subscribe, well, then you may not have seen the last video. May not see the next one either. I participated, if you will, in one of these storage shelter buyouts and picked up 10 air guns as a result. But that's in the next video. You'll want to tune in for that one. Let's go in and see how I had to redo my whole rifle rack as a result of this new knowledge on air guns. Well, this is where Dr. Paula likes to keep the squirrels off of her bird feeders. It's also the place that I like to keep my air guns. I think the last count it was 56, but after buying, I think it was 10 pistols in a storage shelter. That's in the next video. I have over 60 air guns now, and we'll try to cover them all in the reviews ahead. You might want to subscribe to make sure you catch in on those. But take a look down here. I think one of my earlier videos showed how I made this gun rack, and it required 3 of these round wooden tables. I think it was for making tabletops or something. They weren't very expensive, so I got 2 of the smaller ones and a large one, and a 4x4 post to go in sections to be the proper distance here. But notice here what I had to do. I had to make a completely different cut here where now the stock goes in instead of a little horseshoe ramp for the barrel. And I had to put some pads down here. I'll show what that looks like in a second for the barrel to be on, because I want all of the crap that's in these barrels to fall out before they fall into the compression chambers and the key parts of an air gun. Air pistols, well, they've got a roll too. Unfortunately, I don't have room for all of my air guns. So one thought was to build a 3rd rack, but I'm not doing that. Number one, I don't have room. You can see here, this place fills up rather quickly. And I have even more air guns over there by those scuba tanks. But why am I not going to make a 3rd rack? And the answer is that I have a good friend and engineer. You'll meet him in a future video. But he is designing with his 3D printers racks that you can add on to. At least that's our plan. And make a rack that holds rifles with the barrel down and pistols with the barrel down. You'll see why in just a moment that's so important. But he's designing it, and he's an engineer, and you can't find racks like that. Why? Because powder guns don't need racks like that. And people think that an air gun, since it looks like a powder gun, is like a powder gun. It's not. I'll show you why coming up. What I want to show here is how different air guns are from powder guns. And that difference is why we want the barrel down. Here's a powder gun. A trigger hits a hammer. The hammer here has a spur on it that usually tries to hit the primer in the back of this bullet. Everything is contained inside this bullet, this casing. And when this primer sets a spark in the powder, it takes this bullet and shoots only the bullet down the barrel. The casing and the primer with a dent in it stays right here. Everything is here, and everything in this area is mechanical. It can be cleaned with WD-40, any of the good gun cleaners. Any crap from powder here or powder in this barrel can be cleaned out. The problem is when we take that type of skill set and move it down here, because it doesn't work down here. Let me show you. Here's your trigger. Here's the hammer. And the hammer hits a pin, if you will. And this pin, I didn't draw it, but it has a spring on it. The air, which is compressed, and whether this is some sort of a piston or even a springer, this air has to be released with this pin. It comes into the barrel where we have a pellet, a BB, whatever, a slug, and this little vacuum created by the skirt allows the pellet to go out. Well, everything in here is really hydraulics. Not so much hydraulics, that's usually a fluid with valves, but it's air hydraulics. And these have to remain absolutely clean. Let me show you something here. This is a fill probe from a PCP gun. Now, if you have a Springer or piston gun, just follow, brake barrel, follow with me. But you see these two? They used to be here, and pieces are missing. Where are those pieces? They may be here in this compression chamber. I just don't know. They may have worked their way and now are in the barrel. As this lead goes down, we call it leading in the barrel. What this lead is doing, it's very soft. It fills any little pockets or craters in this barrel. Because quite frankly, these barrels really shouldn't be compared to these barrels. These are two different things. This barrel has air and maybe 1,000 pounds of air pressure behind it, maybe even 1,500. This has 2,500 up to 4,000 for Magnum rounds. So this is a different barrel. This is a thick barrel. This is a very thin barrel. And it gets leaded in, creating a smoother barrel. And it has to be cleaned by air. We've got a number of ways to shoot air out of it, and cotton pellets and a variety of snake. We want to always drag it this way, so we want to put the rod or the snake, whatever, back in here, and then pull it this way so that all the crap in that barrel can go in that direction. We do not want any in here. We do not want any up here where the fill probe was put in and the compression tube was filled. This is a completely different gun. This trigger also connects to this hammer, but there's not a lot of mechanism here like we have up here. And for that reason, we clean it differently. We've got to treat it differently. And in the air gun, that's why I want the barrels pointing down, because invariably there'll be crap here. And I want it to fall away from this transfer port where air goes from a piston, a spring, or whatever, and into the barrel. We've got to keep all of this clean in an air gun, not a powder gun. So now you see the difference and why it's so important. And yet we take our air guns and I did it too. We stack it in a closet. We put it in a gun rack with the barrel up. And over time, maybe every time a car drives by the front, little particles from rubber seals to who knows what falls down and into that transfer port and in this compression chamber. We don't want that. That's why a lot of gunsmiths don't work on air guns. That's why the warranties are a little fuzzy on air guns. And we end up fixing them ourselves because this has to stay clean. Well, I hope you learned something today and why air guns are just completely different than powder guns. We want to keep that barrel down. Powder guns, we keep the barrel up. If you like, give us a thumbs up. If you didn't like it, give us a thumbs down. If you'd like to communicate with us, please put it in the comment section. You also know that there's some things you can order, shirts. I think they've got some colors on the back. I'm wearing my Marine hat today, saluting all the Marines that are out there. But we've got a lot of hats, caps, and a sheet on deal breakers that I think is very, very valuable as you go out and buy your next air gun. I love air guns. I love the fact that I can shoot them almost every day of the year. Even on rainy, drizzly days, you can shoot them. You have a good day.